Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. As many of you know, the landscape of weight management and diabetes treatment is rapidly evolving with the advent of new medications. One class of drugs, GLP-1 receptor agonists like Ozempic, has been making headlines for their effectiveness in managing these conditions. But what do these medications mean for our overall approach to health and nutrition? How do they fit into a balanced lifestyle, and what are the potential benefits and risks? To help us navigate this complex topic, we have a very special guest joining us today, Ashley Kauff, a renowned registered dietitian and the founder of the Better Nutrition Program. Ashley's philosophy of making better, not perfect, choices resonates deeply with our mission here at the Running Wine Mom, and her expertise is unparalleled. In today's episode, we'll dive into the effects of GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, exploring their mechanisms, benefits, and the potential side effects. We'll also discuss how these medications can be integrated with nutrition and lifestyle changes for optimal health outcomes. Plus, we'll gain insights into Ashley's innovative work and her personalized approach to nutrition. So without further ado, let's welcome Ashley. Welcome, Ashley.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yes, I am so excited. And I actually was on your live, I guess, I don't think it was a
Webinar.
podcast,
Yeah.
webinar
Mhm.
with Carrie Glassman. And I I wanted to make it, so badly because of the topic that it was about the GLP-1s, because everybody's talking about it and asking about it. And I teach as well. So it was like during my breaks and I'm like, I have the earbuds in. So I was like kind of watching, kind of
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And it worked out perfectly. You had so many great points and things from it. So I'm excited to talk about this today. So to
Thank
start
you.
each episode, we have our wine, and wit of the week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that has been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So Ashley, what is your wine, WINE of the week?
Yes. So I do not drink.
That's okay.
No, it's totally okay. It's been like a little over a year. I turned 50 in September. I was like, things that are not working for me. But, and this is like not promotional at all. I was laughing when you were asking me about this. My friend, I'm not involved with the company at all, but this company, they have these droppers. It's like an herbal remedy and they call it Wine Down. And so I put the droppers into so I have my little sparkling water with my droppers here.
I love that. I'm going to have to
Cheers.
check that
Yes.
out.
And
Yes, cheers. I have
yes. Perfect. Yeah.
hydration.
Perfect. Yeah. Cause it's so funny. We were saying, I was like, I don't have kids, but I'm living this summer with my niece and nephew who are 3 and 6 and my sister-in-law. And my brother was away and I would like, this got delivered and we're just like, I mean, can we pour the whole bottle? It's like literally like gone are those days of like sitting and having a bottle of wine. Cause we're like from the morning, like right when you get up in the morning, it was like the dogs are up and the kids are up and here we go. So I would say that's
It's
my
so
wine.
hectic.
Yes.
Yeah.
My WHINE is that I was thinking about this. I'm so frustrated by the rightism so being the need to be right, or this right concept in nutrition, and in particular in the topic that we're going to talk about today, where a lot of what you see like everywhere, not just on social media, on TV, et cetera, it's like they'll read a study or they'll talk about the headline of a study or they'll, any of this stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, well, like there's a right answer. And what's so interesting to me, and especially as a perimenopausal woman at 50, it's like, there's no right answer. Like I wake up every day and I'm like, I wonder what's going to work for my body today. Or I wonder like my best laid plans. I was totally going to look cute for this. Like I was going to shower. I was going to have my hair done. Like just didn't happen. But I got in 2 great walks and I was like, okay, like this feels more right. So I think the wine is like this idea of like, can we please just stop trying to impress people with knowledge or communicate that like there's a right answer. There legit is not a right answer. So that's my wine on that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that though, because I feel as though it puts so much pressure on so many people that there is the right thing to do. And it does go in line with, the medication talk today, because there's so many, just that debate in itself. Well, you're wrong for doing this, or you're right for doing this, or what is the answer to all of this? And obviously we'll get way more into that, but it's just for and I love that you did not doll yourself up and you went for
Yeah.
those walks,
Yeah,
because
totally.
that's way more important. And
Yeah.
that's going to give you maybe, better clarity for the conversation.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
who cares what color shirt you have on?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
actually have sweatpants on under I have
Perfect.
sweatpants
Yep.
on
Yep.
down because I'm
Yeah.
like trying to
Yeah.
wrangle the kids to bed. And I'm like, all right, let me
Totally.
throw a shirt on, throw my
Yeah.
hair up. So what's your win of the week?
So well, that could be it, right? The win of the week could literally be just having made the time for myself in terms of there's a lot of different moving pieces and I hesitate to even think of like the self-care, on that piece, but just making time for myself in all of
Mm-hmm.
this. I run a company. I also consult for others. I have dogs. I like all of these different pieces. And now I'm living in someone else's home. And it's like, we can feel like it's socially inappropriate to do different things. And I was like, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to have time for me. So I feel like this week I've been really good at making time for myself. And I'll tell you the number one thing that I'm probably the most proud of in terms of making time for myself is, and this might be like the 50, like I don't give an F, but the couple of times my brain was going to start to worry about things into the future over which I have no control. I just was like, you legit don't have time for this. Like, just no on that part. So I think I'm doing a better job personally of auditing my thoughts to say, hey, this isn't something that you need to like make space or give time to right now. So it's a big win. Yeah, definitely.
That's great. That is such a good
Yeah,
win. And it's
thank
so hard
you.
for people to do that. It's like that I was having this conversation at dinner the other night, like the people pleaser and so many, especially
Mm-hmm.
women. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
just want to say yes and you want to do, but then you get burnout and you get overwhelmed, with things, and to say no and set those boundaries, or even with yourself to say,
Yes.
no, we're not thinking about this right now. We're
Right.
we're in the
Right.
present moment. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I always like to ask my guests, what is one significant challenge you've successfully navigated shaping your journey to where you are today? And what accomplishment are you most proud of in your life?
Ooh, well, this is a super recent one. And I have a whole blog on it. So you're welcome to go read if you want the gory details about this. But I turned 50. Prior to that, the year prior to that, my company was being acquired, and then that fell through, and like finances and everything else. So life just felt like, oh my gosh, really hard, but also hard that I didn't have any control over things. They're hard in a way that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have control over. And so I decided to sign up to climb Everest, but not Everest. It was 29,000 feet. It's called Everesting. And it's an endurance event where you have 36 hours on a mountain. My mountain was Sun Valley. And so I started training for it. I've not done an endurance event since I ran the New York City Marathon in 1995. So that's a 30-year span. And I trained super hard for me. Like, it was really important. And then I also put pieces of my life in place to like get myself to the mountain, and do all this stuff. Got on the mountain, and spoiler alert, on round ascent number 2, like I was ready for everything. It was literally the first ascent. The entire thing that was going through my mind is, there's no way that I can do this. Like, this is the hardest thing. Like, you train, but you don't until you're on a mountain that is where the incline is somewhere between 30 and 40%. You guys, that's really steep. And the sun was beating down on us, like all this stuff. But I had this great positive attitude. And then I got my period at the top of the mountain on ascent number 2, perimenopause. So it was 2 weeks late. And I didn't get my period, guys. It wasn't like a light little period. It was a lot. And so when they say they were like, leave everything on the mountain, they meant like emotionally. I literally, over the
Yeah.
course of the next couple of hours, left everything on the mountain. My failure mindset, I went back to being an overweight child. I was like, I'm an overweight, like, I just like everything, like all negativity, like all this stuff. I was just so like, it crumbled. I crumbled. I got behind on my nutrition, my body crumbled, etc. So I had done 6 ascents, and I felt like a total failure. Mind you, like going up this mountain once is like very impressive, but 6,
Right.
and I'm not an endurance athlete yet. I'm birthing the endurance athlete. So I fell apart at about 6 o'clock, and there's no way I'm gonna like, I would have to like have climbed all through the night, and whatever. And people were doing that. And the next 2 times that I tried to climb up the mountain, I got a third of the way up. I vomited, had to have EMS come bring me down. I mean, it was just a disaster. And somebody's finally like, go to sleep, see what, if you can rebound. And at about 5 o'clock in the morning, thanks to some really great coaching and a friend, et cetera. It took me about 3 more hours to be able to actually consume enough food where my system was okay to go back up the mountain. I went back up the mountain another couple of times. So it was 9 times total. And I am a rock star. Like I turned around and I was like, this is amazing. And it really helped me with my brain. You know, I talk to people all the time about better, not perfect, set your own goals, define your own success, like all this stuff. And I was like, if I'm not doing 15, if I don't have the red hat that the winners get, you know, et cetera, like I'm a total failure. And I totally moved my brain around to, wow, you did 9. Like, look at you, look at, you know, at this piece. And it also helped me understand that, and I feel like I left a lot of it on the mountain, but our wounds around weight and trauma and, you know, where we've been teased or where we haven't been supported or any of this stuff, gosh, those are so deep. Like, I didn't think I had any more layers of the onion, and they were like in there, you know, and I'm crying. And I was like, oh, this guy was like, why don't you just put on a pair of shorts? And I was like, because as a kid, someone used to make fun of me because my thighs rubbed together. And so I just never wear shorts. And he's like, it's so hot for you on the mountain. We're all in shorts, you know, like that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's just like all this stuff that you aren't thinking about. And so, you know, I think one of the pieces of the conversation today is it is amazing if at any point in your life you have the opportunity to find tools, resources, and personal experience that can help you really clean out the cobwebs, because those cobwebs hold a lot of stuff in there. But thank you so much for asking, because I feel like I'm a massive champion. Like it's really been amazing.
No, I'm so proud of you. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
I do. There's so many things that I related to and what you were saying with that. Like I did the New York City Marathon in, I think, 2016. And my time was, I think it was like 5 hours and like 16 to 20 minutes, somewhere around there, which isn't like anything spectacular, but
it's very impressive. So yes. Yeah.
But like you're saying right now, like when people asked me, how did you do with it? And I was like, I was fine. Like I got like over 5 hours and I felt like this weird sense of failure because of my time for it. And meanwhile, it's like so many people don't even ever get to run a marathon.
Yes.
So just like what you're saying with, I mean, so many people aren't even going to get, you know, 1 or 2 times up and down the mountain, let alone 9. And all the training and work that you did for it is stuff that never, and my dad actually did the base camp of Everest for his 60th birthday in 2019.
Okay. Yeah.
He does not have any, like, his mindset is crazy because he's like, I don't care. I will be the last person in our tour up to the top of it. I will take my time for it. He's like, I'm just putting one foot in front of the other. That's it. And he went with a group of, I think there was like 8 of them maybe, and he's the only one that made it up and down the mountain, which everyone else who made it even just up was great. And like, you know, anyone who made any part of it was great, but I was just so proud of the fact that like it was all his mindset. It was all his mindset of, I don't, you know, I don't have to be the first one up to the top or whatever, but that's awesome. I'm so proud of you. That's a great accomplishment. So besides doing, what is your favorite way to stay active?
Gosh, I just love, like, I have this fabulous 2.5-year-old lab, and I just love being out in nature. So I'm a hiker. I think that was part of the appeal of this. But I also I would be welcome. Like, I have no issues with medication, but I made an early life decision that nutrition and activity would be my medication. Never know with hormones and things like that. I might be adding in, you know, the mix, and certainly my supplements. So I think I will literally do anything, like anything that's in front of me, or, you know, like drop here and like give me 50, you know. But if I have to think about favorites, I'm thinking about a modest, or like kind of something that gets steep, but then has some recovery points, you know, in the woods. Maybe I get to see some water, put my feet in some water, you know, like that kind of thing. So just love it. No snakes. There are no snakes. Yeah.
Snakes. That's a good one. How does maintaining your fitness routine contribute to both your motivation for continuing to work out and understanding the relationship between mental health and physical fitness?
Yeah. I think, a couple of things. For me, my childhood, whether one calls it chubbiness, overweight, et cetera, I always had a belly. I didn't know that at the time. It took me years to learn that it was actually, I'd been on a lot of antibiotics. I probably genetically have slower metabolism and motility. So constipation was like definitely like a thing for me. And so when I started to be able to take care of my digestive system, a big like, and actually even before I learned that it was my digestive system, yoga and exercise and things like that, they were like, they helped me be regular. Like that was something that like, and sometimes even it was like in the early days, it like surprised me. Like I was out playing lacrosse with, for school and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go to the bathroom. Like, it was like, I didn't put that together, but I started to learn that like my belly felt better. Like I felt like I looked better. The other part too, is I'm a team sports girl. Like I love it. And I love men's basketball and I love like all these different things. And I like women's basketball, but I'm like a nut for men's basketball. But I think that the camaraderie, and I find that my people, like I was always like, oh, my people are dog people, but I also think that my people are also ones that are active. I feel like it is just maybe there's just a little bit more forgiveness, if you're like, or a little bit like more of just the, we feel a little bit better, if we're just active, like on whatever level that means. So I think that that's helped me a lot socially to not feel the pressure of, how I interact with people. It's like easier to do things that are active rather than, kind of sit there and talk to someone, which is a little hard for me. Yeah.
I love that. No one's ever explained it in that sense of that it is such a way to be social, and just to everyone, as adults. I was just having this conversation as well. Like, how do you even make friends? It's awkward, it's uncomfortable. But being involved in activities, whether it's team or, going to a class at the gym or whatever, you're finding your like-minded people because you already know that they like doing something similar to you. So maybe they have other things that are similar as well.
And, many of us are like, might be extroverts in our work world, but the introvert side needs that, like, maybe it just needs a little bit of time, some space. And so when you do activity, you have more of that space.
Well, we're going to get all into so many different things. So let's get into you. Can you tell us about your journey into the field of nutrition and what inspired you to become a registered dietitian?
Sure. So I think the key parts, like there are like a couple of very defining moments. So as a kid, I always wanted to be Angela Bauer from Who's the Boss. I thought she was tall, skinny, blonde. If you like, I was like all the things I'm not. She had Tony Danza at home. Like even when she fought with her mom, it seemed like it was fun instead of, like stressful fighting. And she worked in advertising. So I literally tried to be her. Like I tried to dye my hair. I would, et cetera. And not a lot of those things worked out, but I went to work in advertising. And so working in advertising, I actually sold sugared cereals, so Smart Start, Kellogg's Raisin Bran, et cetera. So I was definitely not on this part of it. But at the same time, I was trying to work out for me why I felt like a hot mess at 20. And like, I tried all this dieting and nothing worked and, that piece. So my own journey to figuring out how to help my digestive system and ultimately kind of my overall health really was the journey that brought me to nutrition. And then I'm a business person, I'm an entrepreneur, and it was like, all right, so how am I going to have a career? A lot of like my dad's, he's a surgeon. Others were like, what do you mean you're going to become a dietitian? Why wouldn't you be a doctor? Like doctors are important. Dietitians just, tell you what kind of Jello. And I was like, just stick with me. Like, I'm going to do this. So I've kind of always been at the front edge of that because being a dietitian in 2001 was a very different story than being in nutrition, today. So, that journey really led me to explore where nutrition was failing us. It had failed me. Medical care had failed me. I had all these doctors who told me I was fine. Like it took, for me, some supplements. It took yoga. And I actually had a doctor say, it is not what you are eating ever for you personally. Your issue is your system doesn't have what it needs to run better. So learning that, I kind of became obsessed with the fact that whether it's other young girls with skin issues or whether it's other overweight children or whether it's adults who, whatever it was, I was like, I want to help you. So that kind of spurred my career. And then I ended up practicing in Los Angeles. So I was also like working with Hollywood, which was really like, it was weird. It was entertaining. It was like, at first I was like, oh my gosh, are any of them going to work with me? Cause I'm not thin. Like they're all super skinny. I'm like this, athlete body and, whatever. And I started healing Hollywood. Like I was like, all right, let's work on your digestion. Let's help you, with all this stuff. And that actually taught me that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who somebody is. It really matters what their body is and is it getting what it needs and how do we help it run better, which led me to writing books. And I did 4 reality TV shows as the on-air dietitian. I worked in the Let's Move campaign for the Obama administration, like just doing all these different things. And somewhere around the time of like 2015, 16, et cetera, it was like, wait a second. Now it's like everybody knows about nutrition. Like everybody, like all these people are becoming nutritionists. Like I was training all these people, et cetera. And I arrived at this space where now we actually have too much information. So I'll talk about how today we're in this, like we suffer from infobesity. Like we actually have, we're like fat on nutrition information. It's overwhelming. It's like kind of going back to the start of our conversation. So what I want to do is be able to help people to actually figure out what their body needs. Like what's your better nutrition and how can we actually help you do that? So, I was listening to a podcast. I'm like kind of like freebasing podcasts on GLP-1s like everywhere because I'm trying to listen, to everything and hear perspectives. And some of it was great information. But then the practitioner and the trainer go to this space and they're like, why are people like, if they just understood that they could eat a bite, they should be eating bison and a sweet potato. And I was like, who are you people? Like, have you ever been to like I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and like even there we have a ton of access. Like I just drove through places. Yeah. So today, I think for me, it's a very like, just one of these great careers that has turned around. And like, I've been because of my own experience and because I really understand what people need, I turn around and I talk to, our company, the Better Nutrition Program, we help people. I'm like, come to me, just tell me what's going on. Like if you have a bunch of labs that you don't know, or you're wondering, should I take this medication? You're wondering, you're on this medication and you're worried about this thing because you've heard about it, or any of these other things. And we'll come in and we'll put a plan together for you. And we'll involve your doctor if you want us to, or we don't need to, if you don't, have that, or, here's what we can do. And let's figure out how we actually understand what's better for your body and then start to make choices and see, how they respond. So it's been really fun because I feel like at every phase, I've been able to help people either avoid like just the 10 years of suck that I went through to try to figure it out. And probably even like the 15 or 20 years before that, and how I felt. But also like, I don't care how much money you have. And for many of us, it's not about how much money like that we have, like all of that. Let's not spend all of our time thinking that we either need to have like our health has to be a second career, or that we need to spend all of this money on this part. We need to spend very intentionally and understand the ROI of our choices. So don't just take a supplement because you heard about it on a podcast here, or don't just do a lab test and go do what they're telling you. You really want to make sure that you spend your money in the right way, in terms of, what could be better for you. So it's really fun. I love doing it. And I get to teach practitioners and as a kind of a side gig for University of California at Irvine and our fellowships and things like that. But it really, like, I think we're changing. I've kind of realized that we're not going to change healthcare through the insurance companies or through the government. So I feel like we really have to do it just kind of all of us together with people like you who are helping share the word. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And I love everything about that. And it is so interesting to think back to early 2000s, you starting out in this, where it probably almost seems like you kind of said, this, what are you even doing? This career isn't even gonna do anything major. And there wasn't the internet where people just had all this access at their hands. I'm sure for you, it's been such a whirlwind to see it going from like no one knowing anything to now the infobesity, which you said, to so much information. And I feel like that's in so many areas. Like when I was going through pregnancy and postpartum, it's just like, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, no this. And it's like, which one is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the thing that I do love is your better, not perfect approach to everything.
Yeah.
So can you explain, how does this guide your practice and your motto for
and how it's an ever evolving thing that we have to dance with, because I definitely, as I talked about on the mountain, I was definitely pursuing perfection, and I was reminded that there's better, and that's better for me right now, and I still am like, I want that red hat. So, all right, I'm going to train. So it's, it's one of those things. I think when it comes to nutrition and health, it's just really important to understand that there is no perfect. Because perfect would mean done or set. And literally there is never a moment in time where your body is completely at rest, even when you're at rest, like other than death or before you're born, like before you're an idea, because, then it's multiplying, right? So if that's the case, if it's never like, you could never actually do a study on yourself and say like, okay, only these things are going to change in the moment. So let me see how they are impacted. And I have this conversation with people all the time because they will tell me, they're like, well, I did this and look at my lab went up. Or I had somebody today who said, you know what, they're doing our continuous glucose monitor program and sent me a note and said, you know, my blood sugar spiked for no reason. And I was like, there are 17 reasons that I can tell you why your blood sugar there. Like, he just thought I hadn't eaten anything. And I was like, you just exercised, you might have been stressed, you might, you know, here, like, boom, boom, boom. Like, there are all of these things. So I think it's really important for us to remember that legitimately, like factually, you cannot have perfect as a goal. Like, it is an equation that doesn't work. So if we can't have perfect as a goal, then what could be better? And so one of the pieces that I've always felt really strongly about is no matter who I'm working with, where they live, what they're doing, we can always help them with a better choice. So I talk about this with my brother. I remember one time, he's a fly fishing guide at the time, and we were going somewhere and he's like, all right, we're going to get breakfast. And I was like, we're at the gas station. And he's like, right, we're going in to get breakfast. And he's like, we're at the gas. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, you know, I'm a dietitian at this time. And I was like, all right, we got this. I was like, I'm going fly fishing. I was like, but I don't want to have a bellyache. So I'm not going to try something new, you know, or whatever. And I don't have to just eat something crappy, like, cause I want great energy, you know, during the day. I want to make sure. So I was like, okay, let me get 4 or 5 things. Like, so that was key, so that I had things, you know, then. And then lo and behold, because we're in the middle of random part of Tennessee, we walk into the gas station and the one behind the counter was like, oh, I made these granola bars. And she's going through and she's like, you know, don't you hate how granola bars that you buy in the package just don't have a lot of protein? And I'm like, I mean, literally like Bumble, whatever, like Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so we're going through that. And I was like, my God, yeah. And she's like, oh, I put hemp seeds in there. I was like, yeah, what? You know, whatever. And I walk out, my brother was expecting me to have like a Twix bar and for him to be like, ha ha ha, you know? And I was like, I was like, oh, I got the granola bar at the counter. He's like, you did? And I was like, and it's fabulous, you know, whatever. So it was like, hey, we can make a bet, like, we're in the airport. I get it. Like, not, you know, maybe not great options, but like, we can make a better choice when we're trying to figure out, you know, what we're looking to do. Whenever like somebody's coming to me, as initially, maybe as a patient, I'll just say to them, hey, what does better feel like or sound like or look like to you right now? Like, let's just vision board that together. And then let's talk about where we might be getting signals from our body that something isn't better. And let's work on, you know, what we can do. But let's also not forget that every single one of us, everyone listening, I don't care how hot messy anything life feels right now, you are already doing something that your body feels is better. And so what I don't want you to do is give that up. Like, if you wake up in the morning and you drink a glass of water, I am not going to tell you to fast or not drink a glass of water or do something that removes you from drinking water. I want you to continue drinking that. And I want us to figure out how we do X, Y, or Z, right? And so it really is about this process of just being on a continuum. And that to me better feels dynamic, which is really what our, you know, applies to our body in that part. For sure.
Yeah. And I think also, especially when it comes to either diet or exercise, when people are not perfect, so like you miss a day or you eat the like cupcake or whatever, then they're like, whatever, it's ruined. Like, let me just give up. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. So that philosophy is so great for people to just remember, like, you're, you know, not
human.
You don't have to be perfect.
It's called human being, like, you know, in that part, human perfect. Like, so I think that, you know, that part is like very rarely, like sometimes if I'm doing an elimination diet, I'm like, okay, literally for 28 days, I need you to just not have this. And if you have it, we have to start over. Or, you know, hey, if we're doing this, like there are, like, I can probably count 3 times in all the things that I do, which are, you know, hundreds of different things that we do with individuals. So there just isn't any need to be perfect. So if you're battling perfect, to me, that's a very fear-based response, because you're setting a standard for yourself that is literally unattainable. So that is something to do to dance with, to journal with, to do whatever on that part, which is, you know, where, like in any other place in life, like, would you set a goal that is like completely unattainable to you and then be like, oh, why didn't I reach that goal, and be mad at yourself? It doesn't make any sense. So we need to make sure we're not doing that here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did want to talk real briefly about you being on reality TV. So that is, you know, a huge thing, you know, everyone's watching. And using that platform can be very positive, and it can be like taken in a different way as well. So how did you use the platform and that position to educate the public on making better nutritional choices?
Yeah. I wish I had the answer of like, here's how I did it and here was the outcome. So first of all, I tend to have this, I used to think it was like a negative, and I'm realizing it's totally positive and it's playing out like with my life in a good way, but I would be hard on myself for it, where I tend to be like ahead of the curve on things. So like I did this in dietetics before I did this. So I did a lot of these things and built, like, my name is very well known in certain circles or whatever, but I never like built like, and even just when like with brand, with today, like a following, it's like, I never like, I was never like, it has to all be about Ashley. Cause I was like, it's all like, we learn from in school as a practitioner, it's about you. It's not about me. So, part of that was, for me that, it was literally never about me. So that made it great. Like, I wasn't one of these on-air talents that was like, how do I now? Sometimes I could have been a little bit better because it was like, hey guys, did you need to take a shot of me from that angle and whatever. But you go through
I
those
mean,
pieces,
only
right?
natural.
It's like, yeah, you have vanity moments, but I will tell you also that they paid, but they didn't pay extremely well. And one of the things that I did was I cared so much about the people who, and several of them are still my clients, who were actually on the show. That a lot of what I was actually supposed to do was come in and just do the nutrition segments, like on the on air, like the days that I was filmed on camera. You would find me there with my dog rerun for like 13 hours a day, where I was still working with people because I'm like, hey, let me behind the scenes. I know I didn't get to talk about this in the session today, but like, you're having this issue, like, let's work with you on this part, or let's do these other things, because we still needed to personalize it. So one of the things that I will say is that, like, reality TV is just, it's entertainment. It's maybe its value is to get us thinking about things, but it isn't the thing isn't to go like, I'm going to do what that person on TV is doing. And also recognize that, like in the case of the people that were working with me, they got different support behind the scenes. It wasn't just what they were doing there. And I had some really like poignant things where, there was, on one of my shows, there was somebody who the producer and the doctor called me and said, well, this person is just not doing well. And just so you know, we're going to have her exit after this episode. She's a failure. And it's pretty good. It's actually good for us to do a segment and let people know that, sometimes people are just not ready to make their better choices, and she's just not there. And it was like this whole readiness conversation around her. And I was like, no, like, I was like, that's not okay at all. I was like, your diet doesn't work for her. I was like, she has IBS.
Right.
She has this issue going on. You keep telling her to eat more fiber. She can't do that. She could do really well with this. And, and here's what we're doing. Again, still my client today. And this is over 15 years. And she's won all sorts of entertainers. She's won all sorts of awards and like all this other stuff. And I remember like going toe to toe with the doctor and the producer. I can be a little bit, I don't call it passive aggressive. I'm just straight up aggressive on that part. And they were like angry at me. They're like, no, this is the storyline. And, sometimes, and so it's one of the things that I often teach practitioners about today is, what I call the myth of the non-compliant patient. Like, they'll tell me, like, somebody will say like, this particular patient is just not, they're just not doing it. Like, they're just, and I was like, so if somebody is not doing it, then I take that as I haven't figured out a way to help you actually do it. Now, there's a whole space of there might be a readiness where the other stuff that's going on in your life means that you're not ready for the thing that I'm asking of you in the moment. So then we turn around and say, so what are you ready for? So are you ready to shift your mindset and say, instead of actively trying to lose weight right now, I actually need to shift my mindset and say, I need to work on taking care of my body, because life is so stressful right now that if I don't, I might actually gain more weight, or I might actually get sick, or something like that. So I think we have to, for me, I think in terms of using a platform or in that space, I would say I hope the wins for people who, like, honestly, for the people who participated. And it's funny because I often hear from like some of the people who were producers on the show, or, other things where they're like, oh, I'm still doing that thing that you're doing, whatever. And we go through that and it's fun. It's like, this is, I'm like, I am too. I was like, what do you think about this? Whatever. So I think it's fun to be able to, to look back at that. But one of the reasons that I do what I do today with my company is because I've been on every TV show, like lots of TV shows, and so I remember one time being on the Today Show in hour number 2, talking about how to optimize your blood sugar and what a better breakfast would look like. And in hour one before me, somebody came on, you should eat all your sugar in the morning. It helps you with this. And I was like, so we're just like in direct conflict. Like, this is not,
Yeah.
not
People
helping
are like,
anyone.
wait.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, I'm not going to win this war this way. And I really do think it's a war. It's a war for our physical and mental health. And a big part of it is I know that like my zone of genius and what I'm chosen to do in this life and why I'm here is to help solve this, like is to really help bring personalized or truly personalized nutrition forward. But we need people to solve cancer. We need people to take us to different planets. We need people to figure out the water crisis. We need politicians. Like we need all sorts of people. And I want you to have a good digestive system, great energy, like all that stuff, and be able to go do what you're supposed to be doing. And I think right now, as I've said before, it can really feel today, nutrition can feel like, honestly, I would just have to quit and make it my day job if I want to be successful there. And that's like not an appropriate bar, for us to set for people. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into the war on weight and, and nutrition
totally.
and all that with the GLP-1, drugs, which is the hot topic of everybody, I feel as though. So for maybe the listeners who obviously you've seen a commercial about it or know someone who's on a GLP-1 drug, can you explain, what is the drug doing? How does it work?
Yes.
What is happening with
and
this
I love this
phenomenon
question,
right
and please share this with literally anyone that's out there because we need to change the conversation. So my first experience with GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide, was in 2006 when I started working with bariatric patients. They had surgery and literally the next morning or within a couple of days woke up and their diabetes was like gone and they didn't feel hungry. And they were struck, like we were like, okay, we have to try to get you to get this much in, and these kinds of things. And I was like, what is that? And I learned about incretin hormones. Because by the way, I did not learn about them in my training, and I studied pretty hard. So I think, in that capacity. So we actually, in the lining of our digestive tract, and as we're now learning too, like in the brain and potentially in other places, we make these peptides, and peptide hormones are a type of hormone. So think of like insulin, think of thyroid hormone, think of, sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. So these are hormones. And what's really interesting about these types of hormones, like GLP-1 or another one called GIP or CCK or PYY, whole alphabet soup going on. But they act kind of like pilot lights. So GLP-1 in particular, its sole job, the body has a reaction. Its only job is to be activated for about 2 minutes. And as a pilot light, it lights the flame and then the flame is supposed to go. And the flame for GLP-1 is that it tells your insulin to go do its work. And it also tells leptin to go do its work. So insulin, of course, is going to go pick up sugar from the blood and it's going to take it to the cells. And that's how our blood sugar, one part of our blood sugar metabolism works. And leptin is the one that is going to tell us, hey, you've gotten in nutrition. So I actually have what I need. So why don't you should feel full now and you can stop eating and you can move on to the rest of what you need to do in the day. There are other ones that work on saying like, hey, you actually don't have sugar in your blood. Let's create that. And you actually don't have enough nutrition. So let's make you hungry. And that one is the GIP, and ghrelin and glucagon are what it's working with. So these hormones are inside all of us. So when we talk about what the key takeaway for anyone here is that every single person, as part of your metabolic health, digestive, et cetera, we need to be optimizing those hormones. And what I found for people, you all know this, is whether in your lifespan or whether you're looking at yourself or you're comparing yourself to another person, or a lot of time with parents, it'll be like, it's so weird. We have these two kids and one of them is focused on food and thinking about it all the time and never feels full and like that. And somebody else is like, I don't want to eat. And they're off in la la land and, they're not thinking about it, et cetera. So these hormones just work differently for us based on genetics. And then really interestingly, because I was telling you about their primary formations in the digestive tract lining. Well, we injure the digestive tract lining all the time. We might be allergic or intolerant to gluten. And as a result, we could have celiac and it's an irritation there. We could take medications. So things like even non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So like Advil, Tylenol, et cetera. We could take antibiotics. We could take steroids. Like with all of stress, we could drink alcohol. Like there are so many different things that could be changing, impacting the lining of our digestive tract. So that alone means that any of us could have reduction in the production of these particular hormones. Why is this super important? when we talk about this as a medication, I think we go into a space that makes it, that makes comments and judgment and thoughts about this ingredient or this peptide hormone just totally wrong. So I want us to not think about it as a medication and think about it as a hormone. For what I've identified in my work over this time period, and I've been doing this for ages now, and I'm just really happy now they're the medication, so I can talk about it, is I just said medications, they're the hormones, so we can talk about it. So
Yeah.
I've been saying, like, there's some people where it's dysfunctional. Like, literally, they may have never they literally may not produce insulin. Like, so that could be a diabetic, a type 1 diabetic, or their insulin response, or their leptin doesn't turn on. There are other people where it's delayed, where maybe it's happening, but it's just happening at a slower time period. So they may not get the messaging before they're like 3 or 4 slices of pizza in, or 2 pieces of cake, or, whatever on that part. And then there are some people where they're suppressing it. So it's actually working properly, but they're having more wine than they should, or they're not recovering well, or they had the antibiotics, or they just gave birth, or they are super stressed out, or, whatever it is. And so other factors are suppressing how well those hormones can work. So in that instance, we need to, for all of those people, whether dysfunctional, delayed, or suppressed, we need to come in and say, we need to optimize your GLP-1 production. We need to make sure you're producing it, and we need to make sure that you're deploying it at the appropriate pace. Because remember, it's only turning on for about 2 minutes in that part. So then the question is, how do we actually do that? So we can repair your digestive tract lining. We can work on better nutrition, quality, quantity, frequency, balance. We can work on your caloric timing. We can work on your nutrient balance, like all of these different pieces. We can optimize your any nutrient insufficiencies. So that's like the optimization that can work for people where maybe there's just a little bit of nurturing that needs to happen, and we'll get it working again, right? But if you're in the delayed or you're in the dysfunctional place, you may need more support. And so what we then look at is, okay, so I might need something, especially if I'm in the dysfunctional or it's severely delayed right now. Now there's actually a version of this hormone that, instead of staying on for 2 minutes, actually stays on 24/7. It's a higher amount coming in than we produce, stays on 24/7. So it does not break down. It's not degraded in your body. So it sticks around 24/7 for 7 days. So suddenly we go from having our energy that's like 1 shot of espresso to one that is like 4 shots of espresso coming in. So it's boom, and it's hitting all these receptor sites in our body. And now we're getting the experience of having this optimal GLP-1 production. So it's a lot to take away, but I think the easier way to think about it is, there are, like, if my cholesterol was high and I needed a statin medication, I go on the statin medication, and it interferes with the production of the cholesterol to get rid of that. I may stay on that for a long time. I might go on it for a period of time, but there are also natural options. There's red yeast rice. There's semaglutide, which is the medication. There's also natural semaglutide, which is something called Calocurb, and we can use that. There's semaglutide, which is like if I wanted to take thyroid hormone. And then there's also at a compounding pharmacy, there's a version where it's a much smaller dose, and and it might be a little bit different on that part. So that might be the better option for someone, and we start to explore that part. So here, what we're basically doing is we're doing hormone therapy from a metabolic health standpoint. And what we've learned is that it's impacting receptor sites in our brain as well as throughout the body. So it's not just about this, okay, I'm turning on the hunger response, or I'm turning on the feel full response, or your insulin. It's also helping with things like addiction, addictive behavior. Some of us have addictive food thought behavior, where it's just, even if I'm not eating at all, or I'm eating very well, I'm always thinking about what I'm not having or what I'm going to have, or, how do I do this? And so what we're seeing is it's really, relaxing to people and being very helpful. So I'm a huge fan of using it if it is used properly. And for anyone that I'm working on using the medication with, or if I'm microdosing and using the natural, or if I'm using the natural version, I'm still doing the GLP-1 optimization work that all of us should be doing, that first part. So
Right.
That's your big mouth, GLP-1s.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
No, that was really helpful and broke down a lot. I mean, that's something I feel like everybody needs to hear, because they're not really sure. And again, I love the individualization of it, that what might work for you doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for that person over there. What though, everyone always looks to the negative. What
Yeah.
are the potential maybe side effects or risks using a GLP-1
Yeah.
drug?
So first and foremost, if you don't do the work to optimize your system, like if you're going in and you're constipated, or if you're going in and you have metabolic health issues, if you've got high amounts of inflammation, if you have reflux, if you're on a proton pump inhibitor or suppressing acid, I mean, if you're like any of these things and you just throw this peptide in, and remember, this peptide stays on 24/7. So I even had someone, and there's some interesting research, and I don't have an opinion on it because it's just like they're starting to look at it, where they were saying that they've noticed their HRV, their heart rate variability, has actually gone down since being on the medication. I was like, yeah, because your system is getting this, it is getting this peptide 24/7. There's no turnoff. So it is literally telling your, like on an ongoing basis, it is telling your system to give you messages that you feel full and to give you messages to deploy your insulin and response. When we're sleeping, we don't need that. Like that's, his
Right.
on that part. So that's where I like that, I use the natural version wherever I can, or I might microdose and be able. So the difference between compounding and the brand names, there's the efficacy and the safety of a brand name because it has to meet that FDA, and we know it's the set amount, and we know the research correlates with it. If a compounding pharmacy is a compounding pharmacy that I, as the practitioner, know and I trust, and I've used their ingredients, and I know how they're sourcing things, just like a supplement company or anything else like that, then the fact that I can actually use the ingredients, number one, it costs a lot less, but if I can use an ingredient at a much smaller amount and I don't have to use a dose that is prescribed for, like, what if somebody is 400 pounds and has 200 pounds to lose? And what if I'm working on my blood sugar and I maybe have like maybe 20 or 30 pounds to lose? Am I on the same dose of the medication? Or what if I'm somebody who is perimenopausal versus if I'm somebody who's 20 versus if I'm somebody who's 15? So there are a lot of potential side effects, in my opinion. That is the case with every medication, and it is absolutely the case if you start playing with hormones. So you don't just go in, we never go in as a practitioner and just say to somebody, okay, I want every single patient that I've seen this week to be on the same amount of estrogen. Are you kidding? Like including men and women, or like a perimenopausal, right, woman and a 20-year-old, like that just makes no sense. So, or like start at this really high dose, like also doesn't make sense. And then there's this argument of like, what if you have to stay on it forever? So what if we figure out what works for you metabolically? And what if that means that you're using a peptide that is natural to your body, and you're using it at like whatever dose we figure out and it works for you, and you are able to like reduce your risk of all other diseases because you're now able to eat better, right, and exercise and all of that stuff. Now, what have I seen go wrong? I've seen people with pre-existing digestive issues or not check in on what is happening with their digestive system while they're on it. So this needs to be an involved collaborative process. And they miss signs that they're having reflux or constipation or, some of these things. And that can be a problem. I have people where they are legitimately not hungry all day. And so then they're eating at night because they're trying to stuff in an amount of protein. I literally had somebody who tried in 3 hours to eat 150 grams of protein. Your digestive system, look at your face. Like your digestive system is like, I hate you on every level. I'm going to explode pores and out my backside. Like it was awful, like on that part. And she was just like, I'm not hungry. And then interestingly, a lot of people are not drinking water as well as not getting in the electrolytes that they need to be hydrated. Mm-hmm. So that actually, when you lose that water, you also may be reducing the water in your muscle, which is a negative because your muscle really needs that water, from a functioning standpoint. Then I also have people who are not strength training. I also have people who have so many injuries right now. And like, because they went in and are like, I'm starting this medication and I'm not necessarily metabolically healthy. And I went into the gym and I started doing this. And it was like they're lifting like huge amounts. I had somebody who had a hernia the other day and I was like, what were we thinking about here? On that part. So it's really important that, what we look at is this medication is a tool. And I think it's going to be a tool for a lot of things. But we can learn from places like statin drugs, so people who went on statins thinking that they would not have a heart attack as long as they were just on a statin learned that something like 70% of people on statins or 70% of people with normal cholesterol still have, there was a study that they still have heart disease or heart attack or stroke. And so it was like, hey, we can't optimize your life with a medication or with a hormone, but we may be able to make significant improvements. And, I think with anything, the other piece that you want to think about is, it is very unlikely that any practitioner, certainly any practitioner you see from an emergency standpoint, but any practitioner is going to put the dots together better than you are. And what I mean by that is, if you notice you have a skin rash and, or you notice you're constipated, or all of a sudden you're having acne or whatever, you could go see a dermatologist and they're just going to start treating your acne. Well, if you don't tell them, hey, I started on a semaglutide, I increased my dose, I've been doing this, then it also doesn't ever get registered as a potential side effect. So we're not going to see a lot of places, we're not going to see that the side effects are going to be attributed to how someone was using the medication or what choices they were making. And that, I think can be confusing. So my main advice is, if interested, don't buy it off the internet. Find a practitioner. We have great practitioners. I'm happy to refer to you two. And then do the work before, during, and if you may need to come off of it, so you might decide to get pregnant and then you're like, we're not keeping you on it during pregnancy, or you may have unfortunate circumstance where you need to either have surgery or, a cancer treatment or something else. So we have to come off of it, or it might not be as available to you, or financially it's not available. And so that's why I highly recommend, whenever you're thinking about this, doing the work on the foundational GLP-1 optimization work, which is what my specialty has been for decades now. And as I said, I just get to talk about, because now everybody is like, GLP-1, cool, in that part. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that you said in the webinar that really stuck with me was about the collaboration of someone like a registered dietitian should be assigned, a registered dietitian should be assigned to everyone on any GLP-1. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I never thought of that before, but you're so right, because a lot of people who maybe are, who need to lose weight, they haven't found the proper skills to, manage their nutrition properly. So now they're just they're losing this weight, which is, great for their health, but when they go off it, they could just gain it all back because they, want to. So how do you kind of see the future of this for your
I wish, I don't know that pharma would have done this, but I wish that we would have taken more of the bariatric model. So if somebody wanted to have bariatric surgery, as a dietitian, I had to screen them, a therapist had to screen them, the gastroenterologist had to screen them, and then we would go forward, right? And then ideally they would stay working with somebody, on that part. And I love what you were saying. I want to add some nuance to it too, because I actually find a lot of people who are obese, I hate these terms, where it's just like, hey, I am trying to, from a weight health standpoint, I'm either trying to reduce my body fat or I'm trying to optimize my metabolic health, achieve better weight health. And as I'm doing that, it's like they may have known what worked for them then in terms of health, but as your body goes through these changes, we need to make sure that we still know, different things are going to work for you. You need to adjust your medications, which are often, prescribed based on your weight. There's so many different things that we have to do that's part of this. Food might have been a coping skill for you. You might be a people pleaser where you used to say yes to going out to eat with people. And some people have told me people don't want to go eat with me now because the most I want to do is share something, or I am actually not hungry at lunch, or I don't want to go to the coffee shop, but I actually miss going with my friends and now I feel lonely. Or there are just so many, or shopping, I was a shopping addict and now I'm not shopping online all the time. And so what am I going to do with my money? It's all these different things, right? So we want to look at it as this whole ecosystem. And I do want to acknowledge that as a registered dietitian, I do not believe that dietitians are the nutrition experts. Many of my colleagues right now may blow me up and just say thanks a lot for selling us out. I don't think that's the case. I think that there are, I have great, CNSs, there are coaches, there are doctors, but I think what you want to work with is somebody who, there are two sets of skills that we need. We need to be able to identify what your body needs, and then we need and be able to make recommendations to try out and see how we can give you choices that meet those needs. And then we need to help you be able to make those choices more often. And so a lot of times for me, that's the dietitian and the coach. And that might be someone in one space. That might be the coach alone working with a great doctor. That might be, but what I always say when I'm teaching doctors about this is your patients have a lot of needs. You do not need to meet those needs, but if you are offering care, your system needs to meet those needs, or you need to help create an expanded system to help them understand that part. Not every, like the number of times that I tell doctors, please do not tell your patients on GLP-1s that they have to go do more strength training. What they need to do is they need to work with somebody to figure out, we know where your body composition is right now. How are we going to prevent muscle loss? And how are we going to even build muscle, or whatever on that part? Whose expertise is that? And who can I have you work with on that part, and to look at that. So I unfortunately just don't think that we're going to be able to kind of put the cork back in the bottle and say let's do this as a system. And what you really want to do is look at, and by the way, I totally understand from a budgeting standpoint. And I work with my patients to actually help them budget on a quarterly basis for their GLP-1 planning. So I just did this with a client. She came to me first. She was wondering about the medication. We did this. We looked at her labs. We looked at stuff. We put a plan together. I said, I think it's great. Have a discussion that we can do this naturally. We can do this here. But if this is really what's driving you, she went back and she was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. And I was like, okay, so let's get you with my partner. So we called, we had her sign up for the doctor. The doctor's their own business. The doctor's like, here's what the semaglutide is going to cost. I'd like you to be part of my program so that I can touch base with you. And I just turned around and I said, okay, you don't need me you don't need me, Ashley, and also the doctor, but you do need my coach.
Right.
So we knocked off, the doctor's program was $99 a month. The difference between working with me and working with our coach was $99 a month. And I said, let's have you work with the coach. I still am a part of the system, and we've got the doctor there, and we adjusted. And I said, and now that you're spending on the medication, let's adjust your supplements so that you're not spending as much there. But I need you to also plan to have these 3 labs done at this time period. And if your insurance doesn't cover this, here's what that's going to cost. So I highly recommend that you almost need an accounting session, budget to make sure that, that you think you're going to be able to do this. Otherwise, you're just, you're solving for something, but you're not really looking at a total solution on that part. Yeah.
Yeah. You're still kind of putting the Band-Aid on it, but not getting the full. I love that you do that. That's amazing. Yeah. So looking ahead, what advancements or trends in nutrition and medical treatment are you most excited about? And how do you think they're going to impact the field?
Yeah. So I'm going to go with one that I'm not excited about. So so one that I heard is on the radar and coming out pretty soon is actually a 6-month GLP-1. There might be a use for it, but that's a long time to go on something, especially in the beginning. Maybe you go on something for a while and then you would use the 6 months. So we want to learn. We've learned a lot about where oral contraceptives have not helped women in terms of our health and things like that. So, and I don't mean it all in terms of actually getting pregnant, or those pieces, but in terms of gut health and nutrients and, things. So I think it's important to watch on that part. What I'm excited about is, I think that that as collaboratively that patients or people, I'm a patient. So me, you, all of us, we have so much power. We're coming in and we're able to say, hey, I'm not going to fall for that, or I don't want this. It's I'm seeing that things when a food company comes out with we're going to have your GLP-1 foods, it's come.
I know, it's going to be the next lean cuisine. Yeah.
We were there with the Atkins stores. We were there at the South Beach.
Oh gosh.
So I think that the consumer, even if the plenty of people are going to fall for it, plenty of money is going to be spent there. But I think there's a bigger piece, and it's not an era where companies can get away with stuff. So even most recently, the price of GLP-1s in other countries is in the $50 to $100, whereas they're in the thousands of dollars here in this country.
Right.
So that was already brought up. And I believe that the FDA is already, and I don't know if it's the FDA. I believe somebody is already saying to pharma, you've got to adjust your pricing because that's ridiculous. So I think we're kind of gone is that era where maybe not gone, but maybe we'll see that a lessening of that era of the global market, because otherwise I would just go to, wherever and buy my, whatever I want to take over there, and be able to do it on that part. And, I'm just I train practitioners. And so honestly, I am just fast. I love it. I am so excited about the number of practitioners that are, coming our way and saying I want to learn to do it this way, or how do I work with you? Because I had a doctor the other day and he was like, I love what you said, Ashley. He's like, I love working in my zone of genius. And he's like, and I also love getting out of my sailboat. And like, he's like, I am a better doctor because I take time off. And he's like, when I'm taking time off, you're taking care of my patients. And I was like, that's the way it works, on that part.
Yeah.
So I just love that, like, we're able to, both from a business standpoint and a teaching standpoint, that I'm able to, provide more of that support. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, you have shared so much with us. Is there any information or insights maybe that we didn't cover that you'd like to share before we start to wind down?
No, it's time to wind down. I feel like we've got places to go. Thank you to anyone who stuck around for like all of this. I hope that there's something that you take from it. I guess maybe also proceed with caution. Like I started off the conversation about infobesity, overwhelm. There is no right answer. So please, nothing that I said here was directed at you personally. The only thing that is directed at you personally is I do want to just invite you to connect with us. You can chat us on our website. You can find me on social media. We do a lot of things that are free and out there in the public. Obviously we're a business, but like, I do like to do that piece. But before you make an investment, let's really try to figure out, like, do you have what you need to be successful, like as far as that plan and putting it together? And we'd love to support you in that or help you find, someone that can do that part. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I will link all of that in. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was, I personally learned so much. That's one of the best things I love about podcasting is just getting such a wealth of knowledge for myself. And I know everybody listening will learn so much as well. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. Again, a huge thank you to Ashley for sharing her insights on GLP-1 drugs and the impact on health and nutrition. It's always enlightening to hear from the experts who can break down complex topics and provide practical advice, which you did wonderfully. And you did it at a level that everybody can understand, which I think is also very important too, because it can get a little, complicated when you're hearing maybe words that you don't know or things you don't understand. So you did such a great job of that. So, and if you found today's discussion helpful, be sure to check out Ashley's work at the Better Nutrition Program, where you can find resources and tools to make better, not perfect choices in your daily life. Remember, whether you're considering a new medication, changing your diet, or simply looking for ways to improve your overall well-being, it's all about finding what works best for you. As Ashley reminded us, personalized nutrition and a balanced approach are key to achieving and maintaining good health. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at @therunningwinemom_. And Ashley, can you let the listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, the Better Nutrition Program is kind of everywhere. And then also Ashley Kauff or Ashley Kauff approved. I think if you get in there, you'll find me either way. Yeah.
Awesome. And again, I will link all of that. Thank you, Ashley, so much. I appreciate it. So thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers. And I will be back next Tuesday.